The past few months, me and a friend have been watching the entirety of Attack on Titan, from Season 1 to the final chapters. They were seeing it all for the first time, but for me it was technically the third. I got on the manga around the time the Marley arc was hitting its climax, about April of 2018, and of course I was there in December of 2023 when the anime finally caught up to it and reached its spectacular conclusion. Going into it knowing everything already means that all the series' well thought out foreshadowing really shines through, despite Wit Studios' efforts to destroy most of it. Going in with this perspective, you also see those earlier seasons, especially Season 1, in a very different light. Compared to all the human conflict, politics, grey and black morality and genocide in the final season, Season 1 almost feels quaint, simple, fun. I found myself really appreciating it, and once that time had passed, I found myself longing for it in a very similar way to the characters. There was another key difference to my experience this time, however. That difference being, there was no community for me to experience the series with. And that's not because the AOT fandom just disbanded after the anime ended. No, this was a conscious decision of mine. I didn't post about my rewatches anywhere, I didn't look up old episodes and chapter discussions, I didn't watch reviews or reaction videos. In fact, I haven't really done that for a long time. Now, a part of that was due to the unique properties of the Attack on Titan fanbase. The series is very ambitious in terms of its characterization and themes, but somewhat ambiguous regarding its ultimate conclusions regarding the questions it asks. Whether that's due to wanting the audience to think for themselves and come to their own answers, or due to the author's personal views bleeding in and corrupting the story's messages, that's a whole different video. Regardless, it meant that a decent chunk of Attack on Titan's fanbase had very... we'll be generous and call them harmful interpretations, and at some point it just became too toxic for me to tolerate. This even bled over into my view of the series. I'd still say I enjoyed it a lot, but when the final episode dropped, I think more than anything, I was just relieved I could finally disassociate myself from this cursed series and its horrific fans. I just didn't want to think about it anymore. It just reminded me of all the awful things I saw people do. Which is why this most recent rewatch was helpful, I think. Experiencing it with nobody but a close friend, I was finally able to mentally decouple the show from its audience and experience it on its and my own terms. It still inspires extremely complex feelings, and I appreciate its problematic elements a lot more than I was previously able to. However, these feelings come from the show itself, thus I'm able to engage with it in a way that feels more genuine, as a piece of media first and foremost, instead of through its fanbase. But though I'm only now properly putting it into words, I think this is something I've been subconsciously doing for a very long time now. I don't really do fandom much anymore. My involvement usually doesn't go much further than retweeting fan art, maybe I'll hang in a subreddit or two, and depending on what it is, I might watch a couple of videos, read some essays or metas as they're called on Tumblr. If it's something I feel really passionate or excited about in the moment, I might temporarily be driven to interact more with the community, but sooner or later I'll inevitably end up retreating into quiet self-enjoyment. The only exception to this is probably Xenoblade, but even that is really only when something new comes out. For a while, I was a little worried that I was doing this because I didn't want to have my little solo echo chamber challenged or broken in any way, but I don't think this is the issue. I'm not perfect, obviously, but I think I do a good job of being secure in my own opinions while also not being hostile to allowing other people's to deepen my understanding of something. I mean, I watch Anthony Fantano, you gotta have thick skin to like that man. Like I said a few minutes ago, I do occasionally enjoy articles and essays about the things I like or am interested in, and when the opportunity does arise to talk about something I like with someone, I very much take it. I wouldn't make videos about the things I love if I wasn't interested in people seeing them and having their own reactions and thoughts to them. I'll even, on occasion, read, fan fiction. I'm not embarrassed, you are. So if that's the case, what's all this talk about not doing fandom then? Well, there's a pattern I've noticed, and that is, as a work gets more popular and its attached fan base grows larger, it has a tendency to, for lack of a better term, collapse under its own weight and turn its focus from the piece of media it was originally centered around and towards itself as it falls into internal discourse and drama and absurdism, to the point that they become almost separate oddities from the actual media they're supposedly dedicated to. This doesn't happen with every big fan base. There's plenty that manage to grow to impressive sizes while still cohesively being fan bases dedicated to celebrating art. However, when a fan base goes bad, fuck me does it go bad. I've already talked about how my experience in the Attack on Titan fandom basically tainted my view of the series for years, but it's far from the exception. Breaking Bad is arguably the poster child for this, the perfect example of a fan base just completely overshadowing a piece of media. One that is so demented and self-devouring that looking at the kind of shit they make, the kind of discussions they have, you'd almost think they were talking about two completely different shows that just also happen to be called Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. Jujutsu Kaisen is pretty much going the same way. I don't know what happened last year, but it seems to have triggered some late onset psychosis. And, oh god, the less said about RWBY the better. It isn't just shows and games and whatnot. One of the major joys in my life is music. I love listening to music. I love discussing music. However, I find I can't do that as much as I want because I don't know, sometimes it feels like a lot of music listeners aren't fans of the music as much as they are the musicians. And not to say you can't like a person for making good music, but at some point people can just stop paying attention to that music in favour of slavishly worshipping the person who makes it, meaning they can't have any actual discussions about the music itself. It's the difference between liking Kanye West because he makes good music and liking Kanye West because he's Kanye West. Speaking of, I know I clowned on the Melon Man a few minutes ago, but I feel like this point from his Unreviewable 1 video really hits home for me.
I think this comment here pretty much sums things up. We don't care as long as the album is good. His personality and what he says doesn't matter to me. I only care about the music. How do you penetrate this level of self-imposed ignorance? This person is not listening to Kanye. He's not listening to anything I or anyone has to say about Kanye. And this comment was posted after the album was released, so he's apparently not even listening to the content of the music that he supposedly cares so much about. So this argument about, I only care about the music, can't possibly be true.
Hello, this is Editing Kai coming in at the last minute. I'm doing this because I think people are gonna misconstrue Anthony's words here, and by extension my intent in using them for this video. The person making the comment says, I only care about the music, and they are right in the sense that, like a child who hasn't learned object permanence yet, they are only focused on what is in front of them at this very moment, with absolutely no interest in digging deeper, no interest in engaging with the work and genuinely processing what they're hearing, no interest in considering the wider context to the work, just doing absolutely everything they can to avoid their opinion changing or developing any sort of nuance. It doesn't matter what anyone might say to flesh out that opinion or make them think about why it is they have these opinions. They can just shut all of that down with a simple, I don't care, I just think it sounds good. It's doing a disservice to the community by reducing discussion down to simply good, yes or no. And frankly, it's a disservice to Kanye and the music he's making, because by only engaging with it in such simple, binary terms, you are stripping it of all its nuances, all its intricacies, all the hundreds of deliberate choices made while making it, all its meaning. Imagine putting your heart into something, spending years on a work of art, putting everything you've got into it, and then you show it to someone and they just look at it and go, yeah, it's good. Oh, okay. Do you want to say what you liked about it? Yeah, it's good. Oh, well, is there anything you didn't like? Anything you think might need improving? Yeah, it's good. Well, okay, well, do you want to know why I made it or what inspired it? Yeah, it's good. Do you see what I'm getting at? This is like peak consumerism for me. There is absolutely no thought put into what it is you're consuming, no thought into why you're consuming it and what that might possibly say about you or the world you live in. It is the equivalent of just mindlessly shoveling food into your mouth without even tasting it, not even caring about the taste as long as it doesn't make you throw up. And like, you can enjoy junk food, you can enjoy simple, easy to make, easy to prepare food, but actually enjoying that food still requires you take the time to savor and digest it. Similarly, you can like dumb, fun, simple music. I like Die Lit for fuck's sake. But to somehow imply that you still can't earnestly engage and analyze it as a serious work of art because of that is so reductive and anti-intellectual and just takes the fun out of things, you know? Okay, that's it. Back to the video. As for why fandoms do this, I couldn't tell you. Some unholy mix of social media platforms that promote inflammatory content for clicks, developing a twisted us versus them purity culture, post-ironic memes making sincerity impossible, capitalism probably, it is the root of all evil. Regardless, it fosters an environment where it becomes difficult to simply discuss art without inadvertently triggering some kind of drama or discourse or circle jerk or whatever. When I involve myself in a fandom, there is only one reason I am there, and that is because I want to show my interest in something or to see other people's interest in something. I want to discuss and analyze and criticize something that I am passionate about with people who are just as invested as me. If I didn't want anything to do with community at all, I probably wouldn't have started making videos in the first place. Which is why I always feel a little sad whenever I have to start putting boundaries between myself and a fanbase. I love art, and I love seeing other people love art, but because so much fandom stuff is done online, and so much stuff online is just sewer water, I'm often discouraged from seeking those people out. I think that's why I like articles and written essays a lot. The veneer of academia gives more degrees of separation than, say, a tweet or a YouTube video. I still feel like I'm engaging with the community, but the focus on the text means I can ignore the more unrelated stuff. I'm aware that this probably makes me sound really pretentious, like, oh, I'm too good for the common fan. I promise that's not it. I just don't have the energy to spend my time fighting with people online when I would much rather just talk about the thing I find interesting. I guess my whole point with this channel is to try and be the change I want to see in the world, and foster the environment of earnest and genuine discussion that I always enjoy seeing and taking part in, even if it's with people I disagree with. Originally I was gonna end the video here, but thinking about it, that doesn't sit right with me. Despite how gloomy I've been up to this point regarding fandom, make no mistake, I said none of it with pleasure. I do genuinely treasure the moments when I get to just vibe with a bunch of people who are just as fucking passionate about a piece of art as me. And so, rather than just end the video on a sad and pathetic note like that, I want to share with you a few genuinely fun, nice, or even just interesting experiences I've had in fandoms. First and most recently, and this might surprise a few of you, the fandom surrounding the manga Kagurabachi. This is a weird one where it started as this ironic Morbius type thing, but when the series actually came out, people started genuinely gassing it up, which is how I got interested. And on the whole, the community surrounding this series has so far been a really fun and chill place to be. It's cool checking out people's thoughts and theories every time a chapter comes out. A highlight is always at Piku Program's Twitter threads, where they go into a lot of cool details and symbolism that a non-Japanese reader might miss. They're one of the few reasons I still use Twitter. Fan artists like Unaris and Bachi AK are another. Katsutical as well, I love their weekly sketch dumps. And of course, I gotta mention Kagurabachi Brazil. Man is just so earnest and innocent, truly an example for us all. I do predict that I will disengage with this particular fandom in the future, however, since with series like My Hero and Jujutsu Kaisen ending, this is de facto the next big shonen thing, and that's always going to attract a crowd, especially once the inevitable anime starts airing, but hey, I'm gonna enjoy it while it lasts. I'm actually working on a pretty big video right now about Kagurabachi, so if you're a fan of the manga or have no idea what it's about and want to be sold on it, then subscribe so you know when that comes out. The second fandom experience I want to shout out is related to the indie horror game Signalis, which I already have a video out about. Over the course of 6 or so months, I played Signalis religiously, and 100%ing the game was arguably the most impactful experience I've had with a piece of media. Like, bringing it up to your therapist impactful, which I did. It fucked with me in ways that I am still dealing with to this day, and something that helped with the soul-crushing grief was the fanbase. If I had to compare it to something, I think I'd actually compare it to Breaking Bad's fanbase, where you're taking something very serious and dark and artful and creating a community around it that's just the clinical definition of insanity. The main difference being, instead of being made up of pretentious, weirdly homoerotic film bros who hate women, it is made up of a bunch of very depressed, very horny lesbians, plus one guy in the corner making Chadler memes. It should be obvious which one I prefer. The Signalis fanbase is an example of one that I have, for better or for worse, kinda drifted from as of late, beyond liking fan art and checking the subreddit every once in a while to see what unhinged shit has been posted there. But I think one of the reasons I was initially so drawn into it all, and still am to a degree, was the underlying collective grief of it all. Like, we're all one big victim support group, just doing all we can to cope with the immense sense of loss we all felt. Also, it was nice to see the women-loving women get a dub. I feel like they deserve their own Breaking Bad equivalent that they just get to obsess and thirst over in ridiculous ways, and it's sweet to watch, even if it does at times leave me feeling, conflicted. The last example I want to talk about is, if you're familiar with this channel or have even just been paying attention to this video, not a surprise at all. Xenoblade Chronicles is my favourite game series of all time. They start at good, and each successive entry only gets more and more perfect each time. Playing these games have been some of the most joyous experiences of my life, and I was so grateful to be able to express a fraction of my love for them by partaking in the 2023 fanzine, Beyond the Sky. This was such a cool thing to take part in, not only because it was a way to express my love for Xenoblade, not only because it was a good excuse to work on my music, I made an ambient noise album inspired by Xenoblade 3, but also because it was a great example of just the best of what a fandom can be. Getting to see up close the process of people manifesting their love and passion into so many unique, wonderful expressions, it's something I definitely won't forget. And on top of that, we raised a lot of money for charity, always nice. So to my fellow musicians, to the cosplayers, the writers, the artists, the chefs, and of course, the mod team, thank you all so much for giving me this glorious, wonderful opportunity to show the world my love for it. I started writing this video as a short, surface-level rant about how sad and exhausting fandoms were to be in, but when I looked at what I had written, it made me feel bad. I don't make those kinds of videos for a reason. And then, looking at this bag, I suddenly remembered, despite how draining and toxic and just awful fandoms can be, there's a reason why we make them. Why I keep joining them. because we love it when people love the things we love. We love it when we get to talk about those things, celebrate those things, overthink those things. Art is more than just expression, it's also communication. You could almost think of it as an organ, no different than our mouths, hands, and eyes. I don't know if I'll ever get over my issues with being in a fandom. I don't know. The internet is very good at reminding you of terrible things. But there's a part of me that thinks that I should maybe try harder to look past those things. That maybe it's worth wading through all those bad times if it means you get a chance at seeing something beautiful. Which I guess is just life, innit? Well, regardless of whatever you happen to find beautiful, I hope you get the chance to talk about it with someone, be they online or IRL, in a fandom, or just a friend you can talk to things about. I think we all deserve that, at the very least. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, then be sure to check out the soundtrack Ethos, which is available on YouTube and Bandcamp now, and should be coming to streaming over the course of the next few days. As I mentioned earlier, I am working on a very big, very ambitious video about Kagurabachi, which is likely to be the next video, unless something distracts me again, which is how this video came about. It might take a little while to come out, but if you want to stay informed on that front, the best way to do that is through my Patreon, where you also get things like early access to music and videos, as well as credits in said videos. Speaking of, I want to thank all my patrons, especially my tier 3 patron, Michael Coolwood, for their support. It means a lot. Thank you all. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, share, subscribe, all that jazz, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.